Good morning, students. So today we will be starting with our next chapter, that is Contemporary South Asia, chapter number 5 according to your book and chapter number 4 as per your syllabus. Okay, now every time I'm repeatedly trying to tell you that what are the chapters, so do not get confused. If there is any confusion, you may let me know that, right? Okay. Let's get started with this chapter with the most updated one at the current times. If you are very much familiar with the news, you will get to know what is the importance of knowing about these South Asian nations, okay, and what are the important issues that are covering them, right? And why are we studying? So why are we studying about South Asia, and what are the countries that are part of it? So South Asia is a name for the region that refers to several countries: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, okay, Maldives, right? So collectively, students, these nations, they make up more than 1/6 of the globe's population. Okay, it's a place of one of the world's oldest civilizations and also currently one of the most vibrant, one of the most important centers of global culture from any point of view, be it economic, be it political, be it social. Right. That is the importance that South Asian nations have gained over the years. Okay, it's a region that is becoming increasingly prominent and it will generate opportunities and careers even all over the world. Right. So if you see in another ways also, then importance of South Asia matters in the world affairs. Now, why does it matters? Because South Asia is important by the virtue of containing 1.6 billion people, and such a concentration of population will always be important, right? So South Asia is also important for number of other reasons. It contains more of the world's poor, about 500 million people, than any other regions. If you refer to the 2010 United Nations Millennium Development Goals report, then that says that the proportion of undernourished people in South Asia is again growing and is now on a par with that of 1990s. Pakistan is a country that is especially at risk because it has a population of 170 million that is projected to even grow over the next 20 years. It is struggling with violent jihadi terrorism, environmental problems, poor literacy rates, and a stagnant demographic transformation. Right. So the degree of poverty, instability in South Asia has multiple effects. It takes away the sustainable global resources for refugee assistance, food programs, peacemaking. And if you see the situations in Afghanistan and previously in Bangladesh and more recently in Sri Lanka, and development assistance that is provided, then that is provided by the World Bank. So because of such problems, because of the problems of poverty and also directly contributing to them is the fact that South Asia is one of the least stable sub-regions of the globe. Right. There are many disturbances which are created. This is in part due to the unstable borders which are created by British colonial enterprise in South Asia, and in part due to the failure of the governance in many regional countries. For example, the long-standing competition between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, over many other border issues, right? And that has all contributed to the sustained regional tension and the failure of the South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation to provide a platform for cooperation, such as SAARC. In the very last class, I have told you how important is SAARC. But is SAARC that successful in mending, in sidelining the effects of war? No, the probability of war. Or are we trying to not get into such politics, such international issues? Right. That is what makes these countries, the important study of these countries, quite relevant, and it is very much relevant, student. If you see the current situations in the international politics, if you take interest in that, you will see enormous problems. The internal problems are one thing, and the external problems are another. So internal problems are there about the issues of poverty, about the issue of development, about the issue of environment, and all such climate issues, right? Along with that, the social issues, especially in India. Right. And apart from these, if you see the external issues between these, the problems between Pakistan and Bangladesh, which becomes a problem again for India, the problems in Nepal becomes a problem for India. Right. If you consider the problems of Sri Lanka, that is again another problem with India. So all these are interlinked with each other. Right. That is why it gets important. That is how it gets linked, it gets related with each other. Okay, so let's get started. Let's study about the governments in these countries. How are they related? What are their issues with India? And how far can they be together and in cooperation? Right? So let's get started to know what is actually South Asia. Now, students, the expression South Asia usually includes again the following countries, which is Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Okay, I have told you very recently in the last class what is the importance of Afghanistan, how Afghanistan has become a new member in the SAARC nations, right? Okay, so we are not talking about that at present, so do not get confused. Okay, now the South Asian parts, it stands for diversity in every sense, having its own geopolitical space. What are the geographical importance? There are Himalayas in the south and the vast Indian Ocean, the Arabian Sea, the Bay of Bengal in the south, west and the east respectively. Okay, providing a natural bias to the region, which is largely responsible of its linguistic, social, cultural distinctiveness of the subcontinent, linguistic, social, cultural importance, the variation of the subcontinents. Okay, now the boundaries are not very much clear. Afghanistan and Myanmar are often included in the discussions of the region as a whole. China is also an important player, but they are not considered to be a part of the region. Is that clear? So do not confuse yourself linking it with SAARC, linking it with ASEAN, linking it with other whatever regional institutions, cooperative initiatives that we have studied about. Okay. Now the next thing over here is that South Asia stands for diversity. It constitutes its own geopolitical space. Diversity in terms of geographical region, social distinctiveness, political, cultural forms in every way, right? And you see that all these countries in South Asia, they do not have the same kind of political systems, except Sri Lanka and India. Why? Because Sri Lanka and India, they have managed democracy, they have lived in democracy since their independence. Right? India remained a democracy throughout its existence as an independent country. Pakistan and Bangladesh, they have experienced both civilian and military rulers. Talking about Nepal, Nepal has been a constitutional monarchy with the king taking over the executive powers. Right? Now, what is a monarchy? What is a constitutional monarchy? You all have studied in the 10th standard, right? In the 11th standard as well. So please take a reference here still if you get confused. Okay? So democracy, you see that gradually everywhere democracy gets important. How? In Pakistan began in the post-Cold War period. There were successive democratic governments under Benazir Bhutto, under Nawaz Sharif, but it suffered a military coup in 1999. Then coming to Nepal, till 2006, Nepal was a constitutional monarchy. There was a king. But in 2006, there was a popular uprising which led to the restoration of democracy, and that reduced the king to a normal position. So from such experiences that have taken place in different countries apart from India, It gives a realization that democracy was becoming an accepted norm. Democracy is an accepted norm in the entire region of South Asia. Right? Bhutan is still a monarchy, but the king had plans for multi-party democracy. Talking about Maldives. Maldives was a sultanate. Now, what is a sultanate? Now, students, sultanate, the office or the rule of a sultan, the territory that is ruled by a sultan. Okay, and a sultan is a title that was assumed by kings who control the large kingdoms in the Muslim world. That is very much known. Okay, so Maldives was a sultanate till 1968, when it got transformed into a republic with a presidential form of a government. Now, presidential form of government, parliamentary form of government are totally cleared with you because you all have studied this in 11th standard, right? Next comes that in Maldives only in June 2005, the Parliament of the Maldives, they voted unanimously to introduce a multi-party system, right? Now here what happened, that the Maldivian Democratic Party, they dominate the political affair of the island. So democracy strengthened in the Maldives after the 2005 election, when some opposition parties were legalized, which means that the system changed over here from sultanate to democracy. Huge change, right? So that is how the system have changed, and over the years the people in these countries, they share the same aspiration for democracy. You will, in the next class, we will be talking about the data that has been given in the book, which talks about democracy as a preferred form of government in the South Asian region, and which are the countries that have preferred it and which still have not gone for democracy. But overall, you see that they prefer democracy over any other form of government, and they believe that democracy is the only form of government that is suitable, that is healthy, that is addressing, that is considerable form of government for the larger good of the people, for the development process. Okay? Alright students, I will stop here for the day. If you have any doubts, any clarifications, do let me know. Okay? Thank you students.